When I was a very young kid, I saw a full-page ad in the local newspaper featuring the brand new Tucker. It had 3 headlights, as you can see, and it was a very unique car for a young kid to see compared to the 1940s that we'd seen around. So I became very interested in Tucker. The Tucker company didn't materialize. I went on, grew up, kind of forgot about Tucker until I retired and became interested in Tucker again, joined the Tucker Club, met Jay Follis, told him I was interested in getting a Tucker, and finally we got this car and put it together. Jay called me one day and said that he had found some Tucker parts that I knew about, but they weren't for sale. So the 2 of us went to Roscoe, Illinois and saw the parts. It was scattered all over, some new parts, some new parts. So I wound up buying them. Jay helped me along the way, and Brian Joseph wound up putting it together. It was a long and expensive process. Brian Joseph is a perfectionist. He done an excellent job. Most of the things that he put on were new, some were made, but I think the car turned out very good.
Brian Joseph is an award-winning restorer, very well known for making concourse quality cars, and he took on this project. You know, it's basically a lot of parts, a lot of new old stock parts laying there. You have the front end of a car that hadn't been touched since 1948. It was showing wear, but no real rust through. And then you had the test chassis, and he took on this project willing to say, yep, I will take it and we'll put this together. And it's got everything that you would expect. It's got the chassis, what came originally on the firewall, has a stamp of 52 for that, was the next body up. This one has a stamp for car 18 right up here under the hood, exactly what you would expect. But he was willing to take the car and say, you know, we've done a couple Tuckers, but this one is going to be the best we've ever done because everything was done from new. It's not like they had to replace steel and replace rust out areas. The car had been basically setting since 1949. He just had to put all the pieces together. Did a remarkable job. Pretty hard to find a Tucker that's any better. Better put together, better running, everything about it. Pretty amazing car.
I've driven this, the car, the speedometer had 0 on it. It was a brand new speedometer when it was put in the car. Brian Joseph ran it probably 250 miles or so testing it. I think it has around, I've driven the car about 100 miles. It has a little over 300 miles on it now. Just after it was finished and the paint was barely dry, it was taken to a concourse in Detroit where it won first in its class. Then the next week we took it over to the Red Barn Spectacular at the Gilmore Car Museum where Jay works. The following year we took it to Dayton, Ohio to the concourse there. It won first in its class. Then the next year we took it to Cincinnati, Ohio, and it won first in its class. Every time it's been showed, it has won first in its class. When the public sees this car, usually they haven't seen a Tucker for a long time. Most people have never seen a Tucker. And there's always a crowd of people around this car when it's at a car show. You can see other cars in the same circle. There may be 6 or 8 cars, and there may be 1 or 2 people checking the other cars out. And there's always a lot of people looking at the Tucker, asking questions. They all have a lot of questions about the headlight, about the engine, about the step-down design, about the safety windshield, and all the other features about a car. It's a real hit with the public. Well, to own a Tucker is kind of a dream come true. For years after I retired, I wanted to buy a Tucker, and I couldn't find one. I kept chasing them. The prices would go up. I would figure on paying this much for a Tucker, and the prices kept going up, up, up. And they got to be 1 million. One even sold for 2.9 million. So I thought I would put this car together and possibly have less money in it, but it took a lot of money to put this car together. And it shows it really looks nice. Well, it's a great feeling when you take this car to a show and see all the people gathered around looking at it, wanting to sit in it, wanting to ride in it. It's just really a great feeling to say that I own one of the 48 or so Tuckers that is in existence.
You know, talking about the crowds around the Tucker. If you think back and you look at pictures back when Tucker came out with the thing, the same thing happens at shows today. There's no competition. You know, if you're in the class with a Tucker, you might as well just pack up and go home because the Tucker is going to win. And this is by far one of the finest restored Tuckers in existence today. With a Tucker, the whole Tucker story, the saga there has just a wonderful story. But then each individual car has a wonderful story behind it. And if somebody's the lucky winner of the bid, the high bid of this car, they can expect to have a great time taking it to shows just like John has, and have a wonderful public come up and just be fascinated. They actually have fulfilled a dream of being able to see a Tucker. Maybe they were a kid back in the 40s, or maybe they've read about it and they're a kid today. Just to see a car like this and realize that some of the technology that was advanced on the Tucker, and I think they'll just be amazed by the outpouring of the public respect for the car. It's a wonderful story, and they can be a part of that wonderful story just with one car. I think the future of owning a Tucker is fantastic. Part of that was probably helped in 1988 when they made the movie, you know, Preston Tucker and The Man in His Dream. But as younger folks come up and they get into the car hobby, this is a car they can dream about. It's still, in my mind, obtainable for a lot of people. And obviously this one is very attainable. But I see that the prices of Tuckers really never coming down. If you look back just through history, they've always maintained their value. They always seem to go up. And part of that is just the story, the saga behind it, because the story makes it that much more interesting. So I certainly don't ever see the value of it ever going down. We've been involved with the Tucker story for about 3 decades now, and everybody that I've met that own them have been very passionate, wanting to find a car or owning a car. Met John in 2003. We were holding a national convention. He came up there, met him, and he just let it be known that he was interested in finding a Tucker. Well, they don't usually change hands very often because the people that own them are very passionate about the history, passionate about saving the history. And so over the number of years, we kept trying to find a Tucker for him. Would just miss them, just miss the top bid, or the car would have sold on Friday and he called them on Monday, that kind of a thing. When this car, we knew about it for several years, the collection was there. I finally called the owner and said, you know, are you ever going to do anything? I've had so many people want to buy this collection, but I have a real serious buyer that's very interested. Would you be interested in talking to them? So we went up and talked to them. They made some arrangements, purchased the car, and he took a dream that started in 1949, early 1950, of resurrecting Car 18, and he brought that to life because collectors for years, some huge name collectors, had owned this project and never got off the ground with it. John took his passion, something that he had from seeing an ad when he was a kid, took that passion and brought this car back to life, put it all together, and then was able to share it with club members and other enthusiasts. And that's probably the nicest thing about owning a Tucker is some of them are hidden away in museums and you pay admission to see it, but a lot of the owners really enjoy taking it out and showing people, letting them see the engine and how it runs, see the headlights come on and driving and the headlight turns with the wheel. That's one thing that John has really brought to it, is that not only did he bring the dream alive for himself, but for future generations. And now just the idea that he's selling the car at no reserve and that he's giving somebody an opportunity to buy it, no reserve, that's pretty remarkable. But I think the biggest thing just shows his character, that he's willing to sell this car and donate all the proceeds to the Mayo Clinic Cancer Research in the memory of his wife. That's just remarkable. That takes the dream and the passion that he's had and just keeps going. And what a wonderful legacy.